So we had Suella Braverman declaring, I mean, really almost issuing a proclamation saying, multiculturalism has not worked. It is not working. Now we have the Prime Minister saying the diametric opposite. I'm wondering what you conclude from this clashing of opinions and what you think yourself, of course.
Well, Vanessa, it looks like there's a difference of opinion at the heart of government when it comes to matters of multiculturalism, cultural diversity and integration. Braverman's speech it didn't necessarily bring fresh insights to the table. If you remember, former Prime Minister David Cameron back in 2011 made a very similar statement at a security conference in Munich saying that state multiculturalism had failed. I'd probably say that I'm positioned between the two, the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary. I think that we're a relatively successful multi-ethnic democracy, especially when it compared to other countries such as France, Germany and the United States. You see in France it's struggling to integrate its more socially conservative non-white Muslim minorities under its secular model of liberal universalism, you could say. Well, the United States is very much struggling to get to grips with its legacy of slavery and segregation. So I think as a multiracial democracy, we are better positioned. But that's not to say that there's not more work to be done when it comes to integration. Last year, we saw the large-scale public disorder in Leicester, which was primarily between Muslim and Hindu youths. So we have to talk about what kind of impact does American-inspired racial identity politics, subcontinental-style communalism, and even Arab world sectarianism, what kind of role do they play in potentially destabilising community relations, particularly in more urban and deprived parts of the country?
What kind of role do they play? You would have thought they were far away, out of sight, out of mind, occasionally available on social media, not something that would materially affect the fact that you've been to school and it's been a multicultural school and there have been people of all different races, ethnicities, inclinations in your classroom, and you looked at that beautiful girl, that beautiful boy, that lovely person across the room, you immediately fell in love. London, the mixed race relationship capital of the universe. You would have thought that Arab sectarianism, United States legacy of slavery and all the other things that you've itemised would be sort of somewhere on the periphery. We can read about them, we can think about them, we can sometimes be utterly horrified, of course, by what's going on there. But our own innate experience of mixing and mingling and falling in love with and being looked after in hospital by and, all the other things that happen to us in this country, which are multicultural so many million times a day that we barely even register it, we don't think about it, it's entirely part of the fabric of our lives, that would be something that affects our essence in a way that what goes on in the rest of the world maybe doesn't.
Well, I think that the majority of British people, irrespective of their race, ethnicity or faith, fall into that territory. But I think the point is that you can have very vocal and tribal activists and opportunists that do have the potential to destabilise social relations in places such as Leicester. And I think that what we really need, we need stronger moral political leadership at national and local level. And we need to take greater civic action as well to maintain that social cohesion. And that's not necessarily easy. The work's definitely not done when it comes to maintaining social solidarity in more diverse areas. And we have to be aware that the importation of, in my view, foreign ideological threats, if they're allowed to take root and we don't have a robust, inclusive civic identity to work against that, if they take root, they do have the potential to destabilise community relations, especially in more diverse and deprived parts of the country. That doesn't change the fact that overall we're a relatively successful multi-ethnic democracy. What I will say is that we should guard against complacency on this front.
Dr. Ehsan, I don't think anyone's feeling complacent on any front at the moment. I really don't. I think people are feeling all kinds of anxiety about virtually everything. Let's talk to Aubrey about this. Aubrey, so we have the Home Secretary declaring on an international stage that multiculturalism isn't working. We have the Prime Minister saying multiculturalism is working. Both of them, of course, have achieved dizzy heights of high office in this country. Both of them would seem to be, one might think, emblems for the great potential success of multiculturalism in this country.
Absolutely, and I think what's really interesting about this is the politics, if you like. There is a theme starting to emerge here where Suella Braverman sort of criticises the government's track record or something and puts Rishi Sunak in a bit of a hard place. she said it before. She said things like the asylum system is broken, multiculturalism in the UK has failed, she says. It's a bit hard, therefore, for the Prime Minister to turn around and agree with her, because it's then a sort of reflection on his party's performance in government over the last 13 years, which is why you had a situation like today where he repeatedly declined to say whether or not he agreed with her. And I think that's kind of what's most interesting here. The flip side of that is, why does Suella Braverman feel like she wants to make these points? Because what she's effectively doing is disagreeing with the sort of policies, if you like, of the last 13 years of Conservative governments and saying they've been wrong or not gone far enough.
And if I said it's blatant electioneering, what would you say?
Well, then I would say that's probably the reason, that she thinks she's looking ahead and she can see potentially what she thinks is coming down the track, and she wants to sort of put quite a clear line in the sand between her and Rishi Sunak, so that if and when there's a leadership election afterwards, which plenty of Conservative MPs are already starting to think about, she can say, I was making these warnings when I was in government, don't blame me for what was happening before.